Hi, I'm JP, and it's time for another one of my dev update videos. The last one was about 5 weeks ago, I guess, at the end of April, and I laid out some plans for the next release of Playscii, and I'm happy to say that that release is now out, and you can go to itch.io and download it. Here's the main website on my site, vectorpoem.com, and yeah, here it is on itch.io. It's a pay-what-you-want download. It runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and yeah, it's got a Tumblr where I've been people, and if you do art, I post it here. So for those just joining us, Playscii is a hybrid art tool and game engine sort of thing, and you can develop art with it. You can put down ASCII characters with different colors and letters and symbols and all that stuff, and then there's also a game engine mode built into it, and that's what I've been working on more recently, because there are a few projects that I have in the works that are using this as a technology base. So yeah, last time I was talking about collision. I had some issues that I was trying to sort out with collision, like things being robust enough and sometimes things not colliding, and I fixed all of those to my satisfaction. I think they could always stand to be a little more solid, and if you're using the program, if you're making a game with it, then please let me know if you run into any issues with it. But yeah, it's all pretty good. I also fixed the I was complaining about like when you click and drag stuff, it didn't follow the mouse cursor, and I didn't end up changing my matrix math stuff that I was talking about last video, but I did basically fix dragging to my satisfaction, and that was my actual goal with that. So I'll sort that out in a future release. But yeah, so my big goal, the way that I thought about this release, Playscii 0.8.0, is I wanted it to be ready for game jam usage. And what I mean by that is it's at a point where somebody else besides me, who knows everything about it, ins and outs, could sit down with it and learn it, and then with relatively little preparation, if there was a game jam, like one of those weekend things where 2 days and you make a video game, or 1 week and you make a video game. I wanted it to be up to that task, and that was kind of a tall order because it implied a lot of stability and stability fixes and feature improvements and all that kind of stuff, and it also implied some documentation. And so I've actually spent like the last week or so just doing solid documentation work. This stuff is online, but it's also included with the actual application itself. If you load up Playscii, you can go to the help menu up top here, and you can say help, and then it will open up a local version, like all of this HTML documentation and stuff ships with the editor, so you don't even need an internet connection. You could use it, offline. It will also generate its own documentation from the code. So in addition to like this written, and it takes a few seconds to generate that. So this documentation, this stuff up here, like the art mode and game mode documentation, I wrote this myself. I wanted to like think through like how would I best explain this to somebody who's never used this program before. And I did some screenshots, and I did little labels, and so I really go into detail about how everything in this program works. Right on down to like some fairly technical nitty-gritty stuff. And this is the page for art mode, where if you just care about creating art and animation, you can read this page, and probably your question will be answered on here. And then there's also game mode, which has been undergoing a lot more development in the past half year, and all that. And so this ended up being quite a beast of an effort, but I'm pretty happy with how it came out. And yeah, so there's this stuff, and yeah, it's got a big, like, all the different concepts that exist in game mode. I hadn't really explained this stuff to another human fully before, so this is actually a really good exercise for me. It made me sort of think through some of my design decisions and justify my choices in some ways, and also just like think through like what was I really trying to do with this, how does it really work, And I ended up making a fair number of changes, of like code changes, just in the past week or so as I was doing this documentation stuff. So that's cool. I didn't want to do this kind of documentation stuff any earlier because everything was still taking shape. But now that it has, and that's not to say that things might not still change, but yeah, so that's in a good shape. In addition to this stuff, there's also the auto-generated documentation, which is actually this is like kind of a standard thing with code projects. You can like do some sort of analysis on the code, and there are libraries that will do this for you. I didn't write like this stuff, but it basically looks at the code and says, okay, what are the classes and functions and variables and all that kind of stuff to find. And then Python does a nice thing where you can document variables within the code itself. So all this thing has to do is just like pick through the code and just like report the actual doc strings. Like this is in the code. So if you're reading along, you know, if you're hacking away on something, then then you can just like these little quotes, these little quoted strings in yellow, these show up in that same documentation. So that's cool because that means that I can actually, you know, while I'm just commenting my own code, I'm actually improving the quality of the documentation. You know, I don't have to like take a lot of extra effort to compile stuff like this. So yeah, this page just has links to all of the different classes that I've chosen to document. So there is a ton of information here for people who are interested in using game mode, and it's also helpful for me. So even if nobody uses it, I'll still feel nicer about using this program. Yeah, so that is a big part of the release. Oh yeah, in addition to like another thing that I did was I made a few more example games because I wanted to demonstrate some of these like engine features that had not been like fully demonstrated yet. These are things that like I need to use them for future projects that I want to do, and so it's like, okay, well, I'll do like little prototype versions of these, and these games like these took me like, you know, a day each roughly, you know, just really quick little things that were fun to do the art for and stuff. So I thought I would go through those now actually because they're reasonably entertaining to look at. And yeah, so this one is actually fairly old. It's actually like a year old, and it's called Chrono Test. If you're familiar with Super NES Japanese RPG games, then you'll probably recognize what this is. This is actually the art on this is converted. Like one of art mode's features is that you can say well, I don't have any images handy here. Actually, yeah, I do. Yeah, you can just say like, hey, convert this bitmap image, just like a normal JPEG or something, into ASCII characters. And so I did that with the art for Chrono Trigger here, and I did it for like some of the animated sprites and stuff like that, and that's what ended up with this. So like a year ago, I was using this for a test bed for like just having a character that can like face different directions and play like walking versus standing still animations, and I wanted to have different objects, and I was also getting collision working for the first time, so I have some physics objects in here, and this is like a debug. This is a debug mode right here that just shows you like these circles and stuff. Normally, you know, you would just be doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's Chrono Test. It hasn't changed that much. It benefits from the collision work that I did recently, but yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. Yeah, last October, I made this game, which looks a lot like sort of a ZZT type thing, if you're familiar with that. And yeah, like it's ASCII based, and our player is a little smiley face here, and it's got multiple screens. The feature that I was building out, again, because I know that there are like future projects that, you know, that I was building this feature for, is rooms. Like when I walk from this room, from that first screen into this screen, when I hit the edge, it transitions into another thing. Like there's actually like a whole other world of different screens that are connected here. So yeah, that's how that works. And then I go into here, and I'm on yet another screen. And yeah, there's a previous dev video update that I did where I just go through this stuff step by step. So yeah, and yeah, again, it's benefiting from like the collision fixes that I think I talked about in the last video. It's like, okay, like be a little smarter and more efficient about how you test collision with various things. Yeah. So, right, I don't know if there's too much new to cover with that. Yeah, so let's open up the next one. This is a very, very simple little game. Like I've had this game on my phone forever, like a an Android app version of this, not Playscii to be clear, like some other developer. But it's called Flood It or Flood or just whatever. It's one of those games that people just sort of like recreate endlessly, like Tetris or something. But yeah, like so the purpose is to like flood. You can pick different colors to flood, and you start off with controlling only like the top left thing, and then you can flood different colors, and then you can extend your flood region to those by selecting these different colors. It's like a fun little diversion type thing, and I had always kind of wanted to implement a version of it. A few things that are like doing with this, and they're kind of mostly on the code side, so they're probably not that exciting to go into. But it's game code that's actually setting the value of an art. Actually, yeah. Let me see if I can edit the art for. No, that doesn't quite work. But yeah, this is this piece of art right here is the main board here is generated on the fly. So it's not like a pre-authored thing. Obviously, if I reset it each time, I get a new thing. And also, like, there's not even a player here that you control. It's just the game is just like this board object here is just handling input directly. So when I press a key, the input system pipes it through to that and is like, oh yeah, you flooded a different color. Cool. So yeah, that's Flood. Real simple little thing. Then there is a shmup game. These shmup and Platscii here that I'm about to show you are the two games that I made as part of this documentation effort in the past couple of weeks. So yeah, I wanted to make a classic top-down shoot-'em-up type game with collision detection and enemy spawning. And one of the main things that I wanted to prove out with this was, yeah, they keep killing me, was projectiles. One of the tests of like all these things have little collision shapes here, and I wanted to make sure that fast-moving objects wouldn't do what's called tunneling, like punch through, because like the outer boundary here of this level object is, it has like a relatively thin collision thing around it, and I wanted to make sure that fast-moving projectiles could handle that okay. And yeah, and they do. And I also, I took the chance to beef up my object spawner class so that it's like, oh yeah, like in this game, it can spawn, there's like 3 different enemies or 2 different enemies in an asteroid. And then it will spawn those at the top, and they'll just continually go down. And then at the bottom, there's a little invisible trigger that deletes them. Yeah. I don't know, yeah. So, yeah, so that was like sort of stress testing a different part of the thing, and also like maybe this is the kind of thing that somebody wants to make as part of a game jam. Somebody wants to make a game where it's mostly the player moving around and firing projectiles at stuff. That's a broad design space, and if people are doing something like a game jam, or if I decide that I want to make that kind of a thing, then I'll have built out some of the core features that support that. Which brings us to the very last example game, which is called Platscii, which, as you can see, is a platformer type game. And it's got these little enemies here, and a little player that can run around and jump around, and yeah, and all these things are colliding. Like these enemies are colliding with the player. The player can't die or anything right now. These enemies, when they bump into a wall, they're always doing little collision checks, and when they bump into a wall, they turn around, kind of like, what is it, like the green Koopas. And then when the player lands on them, they die. I didn't have time to do like a cool death animation sort of thing for them. And yeah, and then like there's a little warp trigger that if they fall in on the bottom, then you come out the top. This is definitely the most. I also wanted to like support like variable height jumps, so if you just tap the jump button a little bit, then you get a little jump, whereas if you hold it down, then you get more airtime, which, is like Super Mario Brothers does that. It's just like I want to do like a jump thing that isn't just like a completely perfunctory, simple jump feature. This, however, I would say is definitely more. It's the least. It's kind of squirrely. there's some things about the way that it handles that I'm not really happy with. Um, so yeah, if you're feeling intrepid, or if you want to make a platform game with Playscii, and you look at this code and you have an idea of how to make things better, both on like the core tech Playscii side or in just like the actual gameplay code that I've written here for to handle things like jumping, then let me know. Because yeah, like I'm almost a little embarrassed because it is like this fundamental archetypal basic kind of game, and yet like my little engine here is not making a great showing of it. I don't know, I don't want to talk it down too much. It's just like a little, again, it's like a little test bed, and it shows off some different stuff. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the example games. Let's talk about the future. This release is a big one, and it really is kind of like scratching off the last like major features that I felt like I needed to do before I could do broad scale game development with Playscii. So that's actually really exciting because I started making Playscii at the very end of 2014. I worked on it for a lot of 2015. I got waylaid by contract work for late last year and early this year, but yeah, now it's kind of like at a point where I feel like it can do stuff, and that's really awesome. I'm really proud of all that work that I did on that, and I'm happy that that it's now a little more approachable in the form of this documentation stuff. That was a lot of work, but I think it was a really good exercise. So yeah. I think I'm gonna promote this release a little bit more tomorrow. I'm gonna post about it on Twitter and on the Tumblr and stuff like that, and just see what kind of attention it gets. If people start using Playscii, then great. Like that would tickle me to see people making cool stuff with it. And if not, I have a good base to make my own stuff with. Like if there's if people give me a lot of bug reports and stuff, I definitely want to do another 0.8 series release and just fix up any issues that people find with it. And I have like a to-do with some smaller stuff that I'd like to just fix up. But yeah, that's kind of it for like mostly I will just be making games with this from here on. Other stuff that I want to do, I have a Doom engine project that I want to get back to. For those of y'all who follow my work, I am big into making weird stuff with the Doom engine. I've got a couple of projects of various scales in the works for that, and I kind of want to get back to that. Like I'm sort of getting the itch to do some level design, so I think I'll work on that for a bit, come back to Playscii, do some more stuff with that. Mainly, I always kind of want to have like 2-ish projects going, so that if I get stuck on one for a little bit, I can jump over to the other and still be productive, and then jump back and all that. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think June is going to be all about switching gears and working on something different. I think it'll still be something that you'll be able to enjoy eventually and see the light of day. It'll probably be released for free. And I've got some other surprises planned for this summer. One thing that I definitely do want to do is itch.io, which is, if you don't know, is like this fantastic digital distribution platform for games and stuff, which is like sort of the primary download site for Playscii. Somebody reminded me recently that itch.io will let you host game jams, and so what I would love to do this summer, sometime this summer, maybe like July or something, is host a Playscii game jam where anybody who wants to can grab Playscii and look at the documents and make a cool game with it. I don't know how much interest I'll get, but if nothing else, maybe I'll make a game during it. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Like just a platform letting you host game jams. I mean, that's really awesome. So yeah, that's another thing that I want to do this summer. And yeah, like I said, there's some other stuff that I still want to keep a surprise. But yeah, that about covers it for what I've been up to for the past month and where I'm going. If you're at all interested in this, please have a look and let me know what you think. Another thing I want to do is I want to go back to making art with like last year I was really good about doing like these doodles pretty often, like every few days, with Playscii, just doing like little pieces of art as the mood struck me. So yeah, I want to get back to doing that because doing art is really fun and good for my soul. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much to my Patreon patrons. You can support me at patreon.com/JPL. Thank you so much. Like in the about screen here, I've got the names of patrons. I really appreciate your continued support. It's really kept me going through a lot of this, knowing that people are interested in my work and willing to support it. If you like what I'm doing, then please consider supporting. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been a long haul so far, and I'm really glad to have this milestone where I can sort of step back and put a little bow on it. I think Playscii will definitely continue to develop. Like there's still plenty of things I could add to it. If you look at my to-do list on Bitbucket, plenty of things I could still add. But yeah, it's reached a certain point that I'm excited about. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this. Next month I'll definitely do another dev update video and show you something I'm working on, whatever that turns out to be. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.